Right now, you are absolutely certain about something you know nothing about. You have no doubt, no hesitation. You're sure you're right. But the real truth is far stranger. The less you know, the more confident you become. This is your brain playing a cruel trick on itself. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it explains why the most incompetent people in the world are also the most convinced they're geniuses. In 1999, two researchers at Cornell University, named David Dunning and Justin Kruger, ran an experiment that would change how we understand human confidence forever. They gathered a group of college students and asked them to solve logic puzzles, read jokes, and rate how funny they were, and spot grammatical errors in essays. After each task, the students rated their own performance. How well did you do? Give us a number. Here's what happened. The students who scored in the bottom 12%, who got nearly everything wrong, thought they had scored in the 62nd percentile. They believed they were above average. The worst performers were the most confident. The best performers, by contrast, often underestimated themselves. They thought they'd done worse than they actually had. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't a one-time glitch in human psychology. Dunning and Kruger replicated the study again and again. They tested it across different domains: math, humor, grammar. Every single time, the same pattern emerged. Incompetence blinds you to your own incompetence. Why does this happen? Your brain doesn't just store facts. It also stores the rules for how to use those facts. When you know very little about a subject, you don't just lack information. You lack the knowledge framework that would let you recognize bad information. You don't know enough to know what you don't know. Think about chess. A beginner sees a chessboard and thinks, I can play this, I'll move my pieces forward. But they don't understand positioning, tempo, sacrifice, or endgame strategy. They have no mental model of good play. So when they make a bad move, they can't tell it's bad. It looks fine to them. It feels fine, and they feel confident. A grandmaster, by contrast, can see 17 moves ahead. They understand thousands of patterns. They know exactly how much they don't know about chess because they've spent decades discovering it. So they're cautious, they doubt themselves, they recognize the infinite depth of the game. The cruel irony is this: the knowledge that would let you recognize your own mistakes is the exact same knowledge you're missing. You need competence to recognize incompetence. And if you don't have competence, you have no way to bridge that gap. This effect reaches into every corner of your life. It explains why your friend who took a nutrition class now thinks he's an expert on your diet. It explains why people who've never studied statistics confidently argue about polling data. It explains why every field has a crowd of amateurs convinced they know better than the professionals. In medicine, researchers have found that doctors in their first year of practice are significantly more confident in their diagnoses than doctors with 10 years of experience. The young doctors are more likely to be wrong. The experienced ones know how many cases they've misdiagnosed, how many unusual presentations they've seen, how complex human biology really is. Social media has weaponized the Dunning-Kruger effect. You can now broadcast your half-formed thoughts to millions of people before you've spent 5 seconds questioning them. A Twitter user with 3 months of interest in a topic will argue with a PhD researcher because they feel equally confident. The gap between what they know and what they think they know has never been wider. But here's where it gets interesting. If you can recognize the Dunning-Kruger effect in yourself, you've already started to climb out of it. The moment you notice your own confidence might be misplaced, you're asking the right questions. You're building the mental framework that experts have. You're developing what psychologists call metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. This is what separates growth from stagnation. The incompetent person feels certain. The competent person feels doubt. The truly wise person feels doubt about whether their doubt is even justified. So next time you feel absolutely sure about something, pause. Ask yourself, do I understand this enough to know the limits of my understanding? Can I explain the counter-arguments as well as I can explain my position? Have I spent time learning from people who've dedicated their lives to this field? If the answer is no, then congratulations. You're probably doing exactly what your brain is supposed to do at the beginning of learning. You're at the bottom of the curve where confidence is highest and competence is lowest. The only way out is to stay curious long enough to realize how wrong you actually were. And when that moment comes, when you finally see the vast landscape of what you don't know, you'll understand why experts sound so unsure. They're not being evasive. They're not hedging their bets. They're simply looking at the same world you are, but they can finally see how big it actually is. You walk into this video absolutely certain about something you understood. Now, if you're paying attention, you're less certain. That's not a failure. That's the first real step toward actually knowing anything at all.